Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilman Foley? Councilman Gephardt?
Here.
Councilman Green?
Here.
Vice Mayor Grubbs?
Here.
Mayor Stiltner?
Here, welcome everybody. A little bit warmer in here than it is outside, so we'll hold the meetings inside tonight if that's okay with everybody. All right, item 4, public comments on consent agenda items. These will be public comments on consent agenda items only. I probably don't even have to look up, and Mr. Reinhagen would probably be making his way to the, hey Robert, how are you? You look warmer than the last time I saw you.
Council members, Mayor, Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive, Port Orange. I wanted to talk about item 9 and 10 with regard to the mitigation bank. One of them is with Webster Creek and the other was with Farmton. And what I found in reading through the one on Farmton, item 25 says the agreement is not recordable. This agreement shall not be recorded in the public record of any county, and any attempt to do so shall be null and void and of no force. So that raises the issue is, what level of confidence do we have that that property is now goes into some sort of conservation category? We just paid money. And does that give us any right? Is there a piece of property that's sort of cordoned off that says Port Orange, this now belongs to Port Orange? And I don't know that we have any confidence that that happens. And so they have all these credits that they're selling. So when all the credits are sold, what happens? Does the land then become property of a government entity that categorizes it as some sort of conservation property? Or does the owner, the property owner, who has unencumbered access to that property, does he then say walk away from the mitigation agreement and sell the property? And if he dies, what happens? Does his heirs have the right to just sell it because that land is unencumbered by this mitigation agreement? So I don't know. I'm just a little concerned that we're getting taken for a ride here. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Robert.
Anybody else want to speak to consent agenda items 5 through 11? Seeing none, back to council. Can I have a motion for approval of consent agenda items 5 through 11?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Move to approve the consent agendas, items 5 through 11. Second.
A motion and a second. Will the clerk call the roll?
Councilman Gephardt?
Yes.
Councilman Green?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grubbs?
Yes.
Mayor Stiltner?
Yes, 4-0. All right, moving on to item E, public participation. Sandra Snodgrass. Hi, Sandra. Welcome.
Thanks. Good to see you guys again.
Good to
Sandra
see you.
Snodgrass, 980 Canal View Boulevard. I was here last meeting and the meeting prior. Back in 2017, the League of Cities meeting, the big issue was septic tanks and the effect on our drinking water, leakage into our drinking water. Now we're faced with actual treated sewage being injected into the aquifer. Chemicals, along with fecal matter. So we came here with Let Volusia Vote to ask each one of you to participate, like Edgewater, Ormond Beach, it's on the agenda for Daytona, to have you help and endorse the petition, Let Volusia Vote's petition, to stop this. Daytona Beach actually did at one point have toilet to tap water. It was shut down. Why? Water quality. Our aquifer is at a very severe level of terrible, terrible quality. And you've seen where the sinkholes are now developing because the water's being pumped out. So Sunday, we released the petition, which I will have if anybody wants to sign it. But I really want to stress the fact that we really need to consider to quit overdeveloping. Overdeveloping is causing the flooding. Overdeveloping is causing the lack of quality water. And as citizens, we elected you guys for our greater good, not the developers. And any of us can go look up who contributed to your campaigns and know where your true heart is. So again, stressing, did you, when you were in Tallahassee, speak to any of the legislators about the Bill 718, House Bill 479, where they're preempting city municipalities? They're preempting the ability for us to control. We still have time, and we really need to protect our water. We really do. If you go to the springs and you dive in the springs, you can see all the algae at the boils. Back 20 years ago, it wasn't like that. Why? Because of what's in the water. So please, please consider signing the petition to give the voters a chance.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, guys.
Council comments. We're going to start with Councilman Green tonight.
I'll keep it short. I got two things. I just want to just make a note that on that consent agenda was the approval to start design on two smaller stormwater projects that are within our city, and just for the people to know that, you know, regardless of the size of the project, that we are committed to working on the stormwater and the Devon Street project and the other little, I mean, again, I know they're smaller areas and small projects, but at the same time, it has a big effect on everybody that lives in that area, and that we are in fact still, you know, we do care. So, and then on Robert's comments regarding the mitigation bank, I'd asked Wayne about this as well, and again, it's, I guess to me it's a farce, but I'll leave it at that. We're buying mitigation on some other property that probably doesn't even exist. We don't even know what we're buying, but unfortunately, we have to be able to do the project we want to do. So that's all I got.
Definitely a process.
Yeah.
So I want to address the comments made about the St. John's Water Management District and their mitigation credits. We don't really have control over that. Can you help me out there, Wayne, in reference to what St. John's Water Management District requires us to do?
This is all related to the Cambridge drainage project, and as we are impacting some wetlands by pumping, we're putting a pipe under the train and under the train tracks and putting the water out on the east side instead of going north. So those impacts require some kind of mitigation. The mitigation is through a bank. I can't speak to how everybody's mitigation bank is set up, but we have one ourselves. We have a piece of land, and it is in perpetuity going to stay that way. So heirs don't get to sell it, nobody gets to sell it, it will always be there. That bank, when it was created, is worth X amount of credits. You can sell them off in pieces, and when you run out, you run out. But that land stays exactly the way it is forever. We can never do anything to that land for our credits. Now there's like 6 or 7 different types of credits. I can see the frustration because we own a mitigation bank. We have wetlands that we have protected forever, and in exchange for protecting them, because you can go get a permit to disrupt some of them. So let's say you could build on half of that land. We chose not to develop on any of that land, so we got credit for preserving the entire thing. But these two types of credits aren't the type of credits that our bank has. So we've got to go to somebody else's bank and buy credits in order to get permits to do those projects. So the positive on this, while it's mainly been a conversation about wetland mitigation banks, is these are two of the final steps in order to get the permit so that we can start construction on that Cambridge project this spring, so it will be under construction before the hurricane season starts. So there's a huge positive in that, is that as we're getting here, these are the last handful of things that have to be done, And we're gonna put that project out, and you'll see construction starting on it here this spring.
What else you got?
Why I supported the consent agenda. Thank you for clarifying that. I have another question since it was brought up. Now, this is the second time in I think the last 2 meetings in reference to sewer water going into our aquifer. Because the way I understand it is we're not doing that as a city. We're not pumping sewer water into our aquifer. Am I correct?
We're not, correct?
We're not. And we never have that intention. Correct? Okay. I just wanted to make sure that the citizens of Port Orange understand that we're not doing that. And we don't plan on doing that. And that if we ever had to do that, that would come to us as a vote. And I can guarantee you that I would not vote for that. So we do a very good job of taking care of the water treatment and sending it out to our retention areas, correct? Out west. We
lakes.
as a city bought property out there to where we could take treated water and it could sit out there and do what it's supposed to do. And we can reuse it in the form of reclaimed water, which we do in a lot of our, instead of pumping it into the river, correct? So I think as a city, the city of Port Orange, a long time ago, thank God, the gentlemen or ladies that sat up here decided, hey, we're going to protect our drinking water. We're going to go and own that land out there so our well fields are in good shape and we're taking good care of our water. We are not pumping sewer water into our aquifer. Not here. Thank you.
Going on the consent agenda, dealing with 6D, dealing with the berm for the police, shooting berm restoration. One of the things I would want to point out there, as much as we do as far as getting other dollars that are out there, this one was in the budget from last year coming into this, $340,000, but out of that, 50% was still FEMA supplying the monies to that. So I think that needs to be known, that city going out and getting money from other entities is not just water mitigations. We're still fighting hard for everything we do inside the city. So out of the $340,000, 50% of it came from another entity. Update on Jackson and Oak Street. We're hoping that we'll have completion by the end of March. And that's repaving, not just top coat, but actual granulating it, pulling it all the way up, and putting it all the way down to a hard pan on the road. We're not just going to gloss it over. It's going to actually be done completely right the first time. With all the sewers and the drainage and everything that's going in, it actually should be sidewalks and stuff here in the next couple of weeks. So we're hoping by end of March for our citizens that live out there. And then lastly is I got to go to an event that every time I go to different things, it's one of these things, I don't even know how to say it, is how much Parks and Recreation does for our city. And I got the opportunity to be opening up the Kings and Queens dance for special needs. And if you've never been to one of those, it is absolutely amazing. The city's patrons that came out to that and the food that was provided for that by other businesses is huge. But to see that event kick off the way it was and how the smiles of everybody was out there, it was just, it set you back. It's an amazing thing that Parks and Recs does, and it takes everybody to make these events do. And I know sometimes I lean on Parks and Recs on what they do, but that one was a wow factor.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I got.
That's it, huh? All right. All right, I've got a few things I just wanted to touch base on. First of all, I wanted to report back that we had a great trip up in Tallahassee recently, and we're up there meeting with some of our state legislators and House representatives and the folks in the Senate, advocating for appropriation dollars again for the city of Port Orange. It is a very eye-opening experience, and I've gotten to do it, I think now nine years, and it still is, it's a unique experience. And every year you go up there, It's a different environment in Tallahassee, and it is most certainly a different environment in Tallahassee this year with a governor that's term limited and everybody jockeying in positions to who's going to run for what next and all that kind of stuff. And it's, you know, not that that has a lot to do with us, but it is a very interesting thing to see and watch, because the appropriations part does have something to do with us. And we've had this conversation before, and people will say to me, you know, how do you like being in politics? And I say, I don't know, I've never been in politics. I don't really consider what we do here political, you know. Up there is different. There is politics in Tallahassee. Here, we're decision makers, trying to make decisions that are in the best interest of everybody else in our community, because we live here. You know, it's almost like business owners. They do the best they can day in and day out. Sometimes they make a decision, turns out it doesn't pan out, they got to change it and do something different. That's just part of the process, right? Things change, decisions change, and all that kind of stuff. But up there is different. And so it's very interesting. You know, we go up there. By the way, I want to again thank our staff. I know they've heard me thank them numerous times. It is not us that do the heavy lifting. It is the staff that makes the contacts and makes does all the stuff behind the scenes, so that when we go up there and we're talking to a state senator or a state house representative or a high-level aide, they already know why we're there. They've kind of got the nuts and the bolts, and we're kind of trying to polish that up and get us across the finish line. And you know, we went up there with 3 project asks this year. We did extremely well last year, the best in the history of the city of Port Orange. In fact, more appropriation dollars than anybody else in Volusia County. That's not to say that that'll happen year after year after year, but last year was a very good year, and this year we hope for more of the same. We seem to get very good positive response from folks on both sides of the political aisle, by the way, up there. They really like Port Orange. They like our approach. They like the way that we present and do things, and they like that when appropriation dollars come to Port Orange, we put them to work. We don't, you know, we move government as fast as we possibly can, which is never fast enough for any of us. So to that, I just want to say thank you again to our staff and the legislative staffs in Tallahassee. Our team is a good team. In fact, we hear from a lot of folks up there, more cities need to do it the way Port Orange does it. We don't want to tell all the other cities how to do that, because it's very competitive trying to get all those dollars. But again, thanks to the staff, and we'll see how that goes. It's a long haul. There's a lot more in the process. We never really know until the 1st of July, Wayne, till the governor's done with the pen, right? So we'll hold our breath till then, and we will continue to seek out other opportunities for funding on a lot of these very, very important stormwater projects. That's just that we're not going to rest on that. We're going to keep looking for money wherever we can find it. One of the things I did want to touch about, because I've started getting more and more people ask me, is what's going on with the property tax discussion. Well, we don't know, and neither do most of the people in Tallahassee. You know, there's this idea that has grown a lot of momentum to do something with property tax. The state basically taking control and saying either we're going to completely get away from property taxes, we're going to modify how property taxes can be exercised by municipalities and all that kind of stuff. Right now, I think they're down to 7 or 8 kind of concepts and ideas, and but when we talk to folks up there, they're not really sure how it's going to work. And that's the big thing, is all of the ideas leave a massive void in funding. And unlike the federal government, municipalities and counties can't print money. So when you have to run your city, that money comes from you and I. It's real money. It's not this just, you know, we just keep raising the debt. That just doesn't work in city and county government. So, you know, you want to have full service cities, you want to have your police departments and fire departments and parks and recs and all those things. There is a cost to that. We are not immune from other costs. The cost of things like concrete for sidewalks and pavement for roads and get fuel for police cars and fire trucks and all those things, we pay them just like everybody else pays them. You pay them. In fact, when I say we, that's you. And so we're not immune from those costs. Healthcare costs go up, salaries go up, all those different things. So that is our question. We will all tell you flat out, we don't want to pay you any more taxes than anybody else. We'd love to not pay property taxes. How are we going to pay for the services we all want in our municipality? And that seems to be a heavily unanswered question, and we're waiting. So what's going to happen is eventually Possibly they will come up with a concept or two out of the House, and then it's a wait and see if something's gonna come out of the Senate to have a companion bill, and then something maybe ends up on the ballot. But, you know, a lot of folks are gonna be asking us, they've already been asking us, I've been getting a lot more and more questions now. I wish we had more answers, we just don't have those answers yet. So that's definitely out of our control, but we will keep the ear to the ground. With regards to Sean's comments about this wastewater, some attention to that. First of all, I would strongly encourage you to talk to the city of Daytona. Daytona has never had a toilet to tap service for their residents. They had a pilot program to see if they had the capability of treating wastewater to that level that the state dictates. They never served their residents toilet to tap. One of the things that's going on in the state of Florida is that when municipalities and county governments produce effluent, which is treated wastewater, right? You flush a toilet, it's got to go somewhere, right? Where does it go? Well, a concept for so many decades in the state of Florida is you treat it to a certain standard and you pump it in the river. You pump it in a lake. You pump it in some other body of water, right? As if it's now gone. Well, it's not gone. It impacts the environment. And so the state of Florida has already passed legislation. That didn't happen this year, this is previous. They've already passed legislation that has told municipalities and county governments that you have to submit a plan to no longer discharge treated effluent into surface water bodies. By the year 2028, if you have not submitted that plan to stop doing that, you have to immediately stop doing it. If you submit a plan on how you will eventually stop doing it, you can have till 2032. What Councilman Gephardt was talking about is many, many years ago, the city of Port Orange actually became one of the first cities in the state of Florida to already stop doing it. We acquired property, we decided we didn't want to discharge into the river anymore, and we treat our wastewater and it goes to very large retention pond systems where it becomes reusable for things like irrigation. And those are the kinds of things that the state of Florida is going to now mandate cities and counties to do. You're going to have to do something. Cities are going to have to do something. And there are only so many things that you can do. There are only so many places you can put it. Putting it into the river is no longer going to be an option. One of the cities, and I'm not a big finger pointer at cities, one of the cities in Volusia County puts almost 12 to 15 million gallons of effluent wastewater into the river. I've had people say, well, I'd rather put it in the river than to inject it in the ground. When you put it in the river, you still compromise the aquifer. And when people talk about aquifers, there are different layers of aquifers. And deep well injection is a concept. Tampa is one of the newest cities to do this because they had a failure in their previous system and plan, and they had 200 million gallons of, I believe it was untreated wastewater, wasn't it, Wayne? Untreated wastewater discharged into Tampa Bay. They have now gone to a deep well injection, and they process it and treat it, and they inject it thousands of feet into the ground below the drinking water aquifer. So I believe that there are a lot of discussions out there that can be had. There's likely a pros and cons to everything. And the speaker earlier was right. Leaking septic systems have been a huge topic here in Volusia County, and we have made lots of strides on getting people off of septic systems that were unreliable and onto municipal and county sewage. And that is proven to be a very, very good thing. But ultimately, what's going to happen is the state is going to have the say environmentally in the state of Florida on what those options are going to be. And then you're going to have to meet those standards to be able to exercise those options. And you will have to do those with permits that are issued by St. John's Water Management and Florida Department of Environmental Protection. And that's what those things are going to be. That being said, there's a lot of talk out there, and I watched a segment of the county council meeting today. I've got to go back and rewatch that just to make sure I heard some of the things that I did hear, because it seemed to me that there was staff that was telling the elected body certain things that were not what the feedback was they were getting. So I'm a little bit confused on that in terms of what has caused some of that discussion, and it is discussion worth having. There's no question about that, because ultimately things are going to change, and how that process works is definitely going to be changing. So, all right, what do you got, Matt?
Enough for you tonight.
All right, very good. City Manager.
I just wanted to reemphasize a couple things that you guys had brought up, because I think it's important. First, thank Councilman Green for bringing up those two projects tonight. Those came about as a result of field visits after starting with the original hurricanes, Ian and Cole, and following up. So you guys know, we've talked about this before. We had people from Public Works, Engineering, and Manager's Office go out and meet probably 50 or so people in their neighborhoods and talk to them. Probably another 75 to 100 on the phones. And then, as we've talked about this before, a lot of the major drainage problems are really a result of regional canals. We don't own the full stormwater system in the city. This is one of those ones where some state, some's county, some's private, and some is us. So everybody has to work together to solve the problem. But the majority of the areas that flooded either flooded off of the Nova Canal system and its inability to handle what gets into it and get out during high tides in Cambridge. But what we're doing is that we've heard that, and everybody said it's not enough just to do the big projects, to do the others. And the residents brought up these issues as part of the field visits. And so we went out there. They were modeled as part of the stormwater master plan. They were on the city system. Some of you may remember when I first started, we were working on a project on Bogsford Road. And as Bogsford went down the hill and makes a curve, our drainage system was supposed to turn the water, but it kind of overwhelmed at the turn and went over and into this guy's yard. So we were finding things like that on our system where we can make those fixes and repairs, and the two projects that Councilman Green was talking about are similar to that. One of them is a pond off of Devon that is supposed to drain in one direction, and one corner of the pond isn't exactly working the way it's supposed to, and it kind of overflows the other direction. So one of the projects will fix that. The other one is Sweetwater, which is one of those long streets off Taylor Branch going by the high school, and it has a similar problem to Bogsford Road, where the stormwater system, when it's full, doesn't hold the water in the system, and it comes over and out. So the project would build an outfall where it naturally is trying to go and get it out and get it in the canal. And so those are smaller scale projects. As those come up on our system, we solve our own problems as we're waiting on the bigger projects to occur. In addition to that, tonight there was what shows up as a Department of Environmental Protection grant, but that is the legislative appropriation that we got last year with Senator Wright, Senator Leak, and Representative Tremont's help. That's the $1.4 million. That's the first one, which is the Ponce Inlet Master Lift Station and pipe replacement. So while it's not specifically related to drainage improvements, it does create resiliency on the coastal barrier island, creates brand new pipes in an older area, and will be a much more resilient lift station. So that protects that part of the system as well going forward. And another big positive, and then next week we have several more items. We have the acquisition, I think it's 3 properties next week, which are part of the original FEMA acquisition programs. I think it's HMGP, one of those. And those are projects. One of them is on Trailwood and then near the Cambridge area as part of that system, and the other property is in Sugar Forest, which is part of helping get those projects to work. And then there's also a property acquisition in Bears Trail, which helps with the Nixon project that we brought up for acquisition this time. So in addition to all that, with Cambridge moving forward with the wetland mitigation credits and under construction, we're going to start building everything we're trying to do to help with the hurricanes and be prepared for flooding, so that when May comes and everybody does the welcome to hurricane season stuff on TV and everything, we will be able to list a bunch of things that we've done and show progress going forward. So I appreciate that both of you brought up things that are on this agenda tonight that are helping get us there, and there will be more next time. In fact, we took the land acquisitions off of consent for the next one, even though they could go as consent, because it'll give Robin a chance to explain where they are and how they help. So you'll see that in the next week. So I just wanted to draw attention to those things as we talk about them tonight.
Very good. What else you got?
Nothing else.
If you could, at some point, additionally in the county council meeting today was a considerable lengthy agenda item on their policies on Volusia Forever and Florida Forever. So when you get a chance, if you could kind of watch that, or however you can get that information, and maybe at some point give us back a shortened briefing. There was a lot going on. I tried to watch a little bit today, and it was a lot. So, but when you get a chance, I mean, I know that's not within our policy control, but I know we utilize those programs a lot to partner with different things that we do within our community. So it'd probably be nice to get a little update what the changes are and what they may or may not mean for us going forward.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Item 15, Planning Commission appointment. We have a vacant seat on the Planning Commission, and we have a single applicant, who I believe is here tonight, Angela Ledoux. Come on up. So when you are the single applicant for one position, I'm not trying to put a lot of pressure on you, but if you don't get this job, this could be damaging to your resume forever.
Well,
So don't
it seems to be a
just
trend
Tell
because,
us only the good things about you and why you want to serve the residents.
well, I went to Spruce Creek High School and I ran unopposed for senior class
You're on a
president.
streak?
So that was pretty easy. I moved here when I was 10. I was one of the first students at Horizon Elementary. I got to pick, we were going to be the Eagles and the colors and everything like that. Went to Silver Sands, went to Spruce Creek. I've started a couple businesses here, one home health agency. That's with my family. You should never go into business with your family if you want to stay family. So we dissolved that. Now I'm a co-owner of Infinisys, which is we do multifamily technology. So we're all the brains that go into apartment buildings. And we recently just moved that from Daytona Beach to South Daytona. So we're now on Reed Canal, which is nice because I can ride my bike to work, which will be good. And I was recently married, and he came with a 11-year-old daughter. So I get to be stepmom, and now I really just want to participate in the community. Now I successfully finished my first 5th grade science project with her. So
All right on.
that's where all the gray hair came from.
Well, if you can get through 5th grade science project, the Planning Commission board should be a breeze for you. Well, congratulations on all that, and,
Well, thank
and
you.
sincerely thank you for your interest in serving the community. I think it's one of the best things we can all do is to step forward and put ourselves in these roles. Speaking of which, fair warning, Planning Commission is an incredibly important board, and it doesn't come without its very tough meetings. So be prepared for that. Sometimes you will not always be popular. Sometimes you will be very popular, and there will be, a lot of folks who will have very heartfelt interest in certain decisions that are being made. And so the advice that I could give you, if you get appointed to that board here in just a few minutes, is go with your heart, listen to what everybody's got to say, and you'll make one decision at a time and keep moving forward with that kind of stuff. So, but again, thank you.
Well,
Anybody
thank
have
you.
any questions?
Thank you for
Angela?
your consideration.
I had a talk with her and I let her know what the pay was, starting pay, and I told her though, the good thing about it is it doubles every year. and you'll be very successful after 20 years. Thank you for stepping up though.
Thank you.
Yeah, some of the characters on that board in the past were like probably 11-year-old science projects. No, we spoke earlier tonight, and I'm excited, and thank you for serving our city. We appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
We talked earlier, right before the meeting, and you got a great reference. And if somebody believes in you, and he's been great references for other people that have done great jobs for this city, so I am wholeheartedly glad that you're stepping up.
Thank you.
One of the best things on that board is that the board rarely ever is unanimous in their decisions. And that might sound weird coming from me. That's actually a good thing. And that lets us know that we've got some diverse perspectives, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. And so, that would be nice having your background and your experiences on the board and adding some more diversity to that. So again, thank you. Well, can I get a motion?
Thank you.
Get a motion to approve the appointment of Angela Ledoux, right?
Mhm.
For Planning Commission.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You have been appointed unopposed, and your streak continues. So.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you stepping up. Don't be late for the first meeting. Item 16, Parks and Rec Advisory Board Report. Speaking of public servants, who seem to have a bigger than 24-hour clock and 7 days a week in their life. Welcome.
Thank you. Bobby Ball with, make sure I get it right, Parks and Rec board tonight. We had our quarterly meeting, And I won't repeat a lot of the things you guys hear about the updates with the bond projects and things like that, but we get the same updates, and it's pretty exciting and that things are moving along. One new item that was kind of brought up by the board was the Palmer building is no longer the Allen Green building, and we talked about possibly making it naming something else in the city center complex after Allen Green, and we came up with the idea of Lakeside Center, and then of course it goes to you guys and for other things. So we had a lot of good discussion about that. So I don't remember the exact next steps, but I think it'll come to you guys and for your consideration. And then really the last thing was new information is opening day baseball is on March 7th, and it is not at City Center. It is at Karasi. So I guarantee I'll go to City Center first, and then I'll go to Karasi, and I'll probably be about 5 minutes late soon. But for what it's worth, that's where it's at this year.
I'm glad you said that, because I'm pretty sure that was in the email that I got. I overlooked that part when I put the date and time on my phone. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Very much.
That's all I got.
Thank you, Bobby. Anybody
Thank you,
got any
Bobby.
questions for Bobby?
Thank you.
We appreciate you. Moving on to the regular agenda portion, item 17, resolution number 26-10.
You got to start that?
Yeah, we don't read those.
We don't read them? I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2610.
I just second it.
A motion and a second to approve resolution number 2610. Anybody comment on this one, Wayne? Or?
We don't have an extensive presentation. It's relatively straightforward. It was approximately 70 acres. We've been talking with DOT about this probably since I got here as a manager. There's a vast shortage of parking spaces for trucks along I-95, I-4, and the interstates in Florida. And they've been looking for places for years. It's out there at the edge of the property that we own. The Daytona Beach is also selling a piece of property on the other side that would cover eastbound I-90 or I-4. This covers the westbound side just for truck parking. It's not a rest stop. It's not for public or citizens of the truck. The price is based off an appraisal, and so it's a fair price.
All right. Any discussion from council?
No, I discussed this with Wayne, and again, I look at this like this if it's possible, because it is 70 acres. It is Port Orange's land, and you know what would be the best reinvestment of this money into Port Orange. And you know, obviously land purchases is or something difficult, but here's a perfect opportunity to take these funds and potentially fund a couple of these upcoming stormwater projects that we have. May it be acquiring these couple pieces of property on Nixon Lane, or however we need to. I'd like to just see as earmark this, if we could, to immediately reinvest right back into the city in a project that we have on the books.
Not a bad idea.
Nope,
Anything else?
good with it. Nope.
Yeah, for those that don't know, there was 20, I don't know, maybe 25, maybe even longer. Forget how long I've been involved in some of the city stuff, but many decades ago, there was this concept of an accessory or an arterial exit off of I-4 that was past the old, out there by the old truck stop, for people that remember where that was at, and it would flow through all this property and eventually connect to the corridor to go down Dunlawton, and at one point even talked about maybe a secondary Madeline major artery, and the last thing we want to do is filter more traffic into and through our city. So that ship has long sailed, and that vision no longer exists, and this property really is, most people would have a clue that this was even in the city limits or owned by the city of Port Orange, and I like your idea, so we can have that discussion later, but I think we're onto something with that. Any public comment on this particular item? Back to council, last comments? Clerk, call the roll.
Councilman Gephardt?
Yes.
Councilman Green?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Groves?
Yes.
Mayor Stillman?
Yes, 4-0. Item 18, first reading of ordinance number 2026-1.
I'll read this one. An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending section 7433 requiring a deposit for master meter installation, establishing a new section 7434 requiring the installation of a master meter for campground, recreational park, motel, hotel, mobile home park, apartment complex, or other multifamily residential units, and providing for the method of billing for master meter accounts, amending section 7439, setting forth the responsibility of maintenance of private water systems, including emergency maintenance, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Can I get a motion to put this on the floor.
It's coming.
Get a motion to open up 2026-1
You have to put a motion in approval form.
for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. I know I've got some folks that want to speak to this, and we will get to you here in just a couple of minutes. But first, staff.
All right, I've got a brief presentation on it. I'll try to frame it first. We do have staff, Steve's here from Public Utilities, finance staff, and also the city attorney's office that were critical in getting this put together in front of you. If we have questions for that. Essentially what this ordinance does is that it clarifies that master meters are required for private water systems such as mobile home parks, RV parks, campgrounds, hotels, etc. I've got a graphic up here. I know that a lot of people do know this and understand, but I just thought to make sure we're all on the same page as what a master meter is and how they work. So this is a traditional single-family neighborhood example. It shows the blue as a public utility water line running down a right-of-way, and then the meters coming off of it. And what most people are familiar with is how water meter works at your house. And everything that's in the public right-of-way and the meter belongs to the city. We control, we read, we run. Everything on the private side of it is the responsibility of the private landowner. So the next slide is showing you, it's an example of a mobile home park that which should be off a master meter. So it's very similar. You can see the blue line on the left showing that's where the public utility is, so that's the water pipe. The master meter being right at the edge of the private property. Everything on the private property is supposed to be the responsibility of the private property. So it's the same concept as a meter on a single family home. It's just larger. In this case, there's multiple tenants in there. So that's how master meters work. It means that it's one meter that we bill for everybody behind it. The private landowner can choose to sub-meter inside of that, but it's their responsibility to operate, maintain, and bill, not ours. Because this master meter concept has been the city standard for a number of years, the ordinance tonight affects a relatively small number of the total people on our system. So the utility system's fairly large. We have people and customers outside of the city limits even. We have about 37,000 meters in the city serving over 70,000 people. This ordinance would affect about 1,200, 1,100 or so of the meters in the system where we currently are not, we're not using a master meter to bill. To put a little bit in context related to that, so there's about 24 RV parks, campgrounds, things like that in the city. The vast majority of them have a master meter at either in the right-of-way or in an easement right at the edge of the property, and everything behind that master meter is handled in private. There are a couple of projects that were built decades ago where they built their internal infrastructure to city standards, dedicated it to us, and we accepted it. So in those cases, we own the pipes, the meters, and we have easement. So while that's not the standard, we don't do that anymore, but at least in those cases, we have legal access to doing that because we own it, have easements, and that's how that was built. What that leaves is the remaining 5 or so parks have all private property, no easements, and we don't own any of the infrastructure in those areas. Yet we have been billing for 30, 40 plus years in these areas. So the cost of all of this billing has been borne by the ratepayers of the entire system. So we're essentially doing the private billing of a private landowner in these parks. And what this ordinance will do is clarify that if you're in that situation, you have to use the master meter. Now, if the ordinance gets adopted by council, in certain cases, some of them may want to go in and do some upgrades to the park. So what we've proposed is a 1-year period to allow the parks to get that transition set up in place. So it's not going to be something that tomorrow we're going to go out there and enforce. The idea is to give them plenty of time to set up, and they all have master meters there, but we're still reading the ones behind it. But some of them may want to go in and put their own private systems in place, and that gives them a full year to be ready to do that. And it's important to note too that when we go to billing at the master meter, by state law, the park owners cannot put an upcharge on the fee. So whatever we charge per 1,000 gallons of water into that master meter, that is the charge that has to go to the landowners. They cannot charge more money for the water. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, or the staff that's done more of the technical work on this. I know there's some people that want to talk, so if you'd rather hear from the people first and then let us answer all the questions together at the end, we can do that as well.
Okay. I will, but I just want you to clarify a couple things. So when you say, so we're going, in these particular communities, we're going onto private property and reading their private meter and infrastructure? It's not ours?
So over time, so originally when it was all manual, we would go in there and read the meters, and then
Okay.
some of the meters got upgraded, some did not. Some of them don't work now, so there's a decent number of them that don't work at all. So we're having to average, because we'll tell the park owners these meters don't work, but they're not our meters, so we can't fix them. So we're averaging and then charging the difference to their master meter. This really should have been something that was done 15, 20 years ago. Why we are, there are no agreements that I'm aware of that says why the city of Port Orange is doing this. There's no platted things, there's no easements. I can't find an agreement as to why we've been doing it, but we should not be and moving forward. And I get it's a bit of a shock, but we can't be in private property where we don't have any legal rights to be on the property, we don't own the infrastructure, and then actually basically creating an administrative function where city employees are doing the administrative billing at the cost of all the rest of the ratepayers on the system. So it's a pretty good gift to be doing the billing systems at the cost of all the rest of the system's users.
But the cost of the water doesn't change.
It does not.
Whatever it costs,
This is not
whatever it
related
costs
to the
today,
cost of the water.
with this particular meter, it costs the same tomorrow.
No change to the actual water cost.
Can I qualify that question? Wayne, does the master meter, do they get billed at a bulk rate versus a residential rate?
They will go on to a bulk rate, which would probably save them some money if they use a ton of water. At the base rate, I don't think it has, we're talking about small amounts of dollars. So, but if for the bigger water users, the bulk rate has a benefit. But yeah, the bill will go to the master meter on a bulk rate charge.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, well, let's hear what these folks want to talk to us about, and then we can kind of bring it back here for a little bit more in-depth discussion, maybe answer some questions. Lisa Morris. Hey, Lisa, how are you? Welcome. Come on up. Introduce yourself.
Hopefully you'll be able to hear me. I'm
We can hear
Lisa
you.
Morris from 64 Andrews Street in Tanglewood Trace. I'm also the vice president of the HOA for that community the past 2 years. So I understand all the reasoning. That makes perfect sense. You need a master meter to come in, and that there's a lot of broken meters. Talking to Steve earlier, that's great. We got a lot of broken meters. Unfortunately, in doing this, these private property owners that have had this land and now have this land are not having to adhere to any kind of guidelines for the water pipes in those private neighborhoods. While being private are also, it's not just the landowner living there, it's all their tenancy. And in the past year in Tanglewood, we had 2 water main breaks. Who's going to pay that bill if we don't get meters on our houses? And since you're not mandating the private equity group that owns that property to put those meters in, we have no way of knowing what the historical bill was. We have no way of knowing when there's a water main break what the effect is without access to those records. And I do have a water meter in front of my house, and when I first moved in 2018, somebody was reading it, and then nobody was reading it. And the park ownership came to me a little while ago and said, we're going to measure 10 houses and see how much water you use. I said, well, I don't use much because I'm single. I work 70 hours a week. I'm off shooting billiards and everything else the rest of the time. Measure me. Tell the city about me. And I realize now that they didn't measure my water because I'd be bad for the way that they're going to average the bill. When we approach them, they're surprised. They didn't know this was coming. That's a lie. And because you put the cart in front of the horse, in my opinion, by not mandating that the private equity ownership groups have a responsibility to the maintenance, to the metering, to the fairness of the billing, that you're doing this before making sure, I don't care if it's 1,100 or 37,000 people are being treated fairly. But that said, I realize now what the catalyst for all this was, but the other thing that I'm concerned about is we already pay for our amenities in our lot rent, the pool, the sprinklers in the common areas, all those types of amenities. If you do a master meter and I don't have a breakout, then I could be double billed for that water usage. And that's a concern to me. And it'll be a concern to mainly senior citizens, whether their bill's going to go up, down, sideways, what it's going to be. We had a 12% rate and rent increase this year.
Thank you. And I think some of your questions will probably get answered here by the city manager, and there may be a few there, Matt, that I think got put in your court, because I'll have the city attorney talk about what we can and can't mandate private property or equity holders or however that works to do, because we don't own the infrastructure. That's not owned by the city, so we'll come back to that. How about Sue, is it Sue Burns? Did I get that right?
Yes.
All right. Come on up.
My right hand's broke, so
That's okay.
don't write so
You
good.
can talk left-handed.
Thank you.
Go right ahead.
I'm
Welcome.
Sue Burns at 228 Chris Drive in the Lamplighter community of 55 and over residents. We, Lamplighter, we are the homeowners. We lease the land, we bought and paid for our homes, and are the users of the utilities that are hooked up to our homes. Any damage to our homes we pay for, not the landowner, who in this case is Sun Communities. We thank you for the letter that you sent out notifying us of the possible changes to our utilities. Upon receiving the letter, I called the city for clarification and then voiced my concern. For many of our residents, affordable housing is a main issue. Further asked why the change. I was told Lamplighter is a private land and the city needs permission to come onto it and read the meters. The city has not been given permission, so the city's solution is to put one main meter, as they explained tonight, that they can read and leave it up to the landowner to charge the individual homeowners. I pointed out all land the city goes on to read meters is private land. I was told I didn't understand. I am a realtor. I do understand easements. I do understand hold harmless agreements. Further, I was told, as we stated in the city's letter, the landowner could not charge us more for them taking over the service from what the city charged. I pointed out they may not charge more for the gallon or the unit of water, but we, the homeowner, will be charged more for the additional costs that the landowner will incur for the city's charge, which requires additional services from the landowner. I was told I didn't understand. I countered Sun Communities as a for-profit corporation. They don't work for free, but I got nowhere. I then called Sun Communities and was told that what the city told me about not being allowed on the property is simply not true. If the city needs waiver, they would be accommodated. The city has always been allowed on the property, I was told, never prevented from being on the property, and is on the property many days. He further said and named a third-party for-profit company that Sun could possibly hire to install all new equipment and take care of the individual billing of the residents. Many of the homeowners in this park are some of the city's most vulnerable. Putting their water usage bills in the hands of two for-profit companies can expose them to cost increases the city, the landowner, and certainly the homeowners cannot measure at this time. Or should I say, the proposed hard cost has not been shared with us, the ones that would be paying it at this time. I am, and many of the residents are asking you not make any changes nor pass any ordinances at this time. Let us all take the time to work together, not just the city and Sun Communities, but include the homeowners, those using the utilities, and ultimately paying the bill. Let's work on a solution that can accommodate all and discover all the bottom line costs before jumping in.
Thank you. Mike Belenik. Hi, Mike. Welcome.
What's that?
Welcome.
Yeah, how about a clock reset?
Right.
Gentlemen of the City Council, my name is Mike Belenik. Today I am representing Parkwood. I was last before the city 20 years ago. The city is good at changing the rules of the game during the game. 20 years ago, they wanted to burden the property with a landscaping bid of $80,000, when all Parkwood wanted to do was to upgrade the existing damaged wood fence due to Hurricane Charlie to a white vinyl fence at a cost of $100,000. The city took the position that a fence was a structure and it had to be brought up to current building code. New structures required landscaping. A fence is not a structure. Parkwood was built in 3 phases. Phase 1 and 2 in the mid-70s with city individual water meters. Phase 3, the senior side, was built in the late 70s with a master water meter. Originally named Palm Castle, my father purchased the property in 1979 and changed the name to Parkwood. Per original blueprints, the city provided water meters. Starting day one, the city maintained the entire distribution system, including water meters and vaults, and billed the tenants directly. 30 years later, rule change. The city wanted to change the rules, stating, switch to a master meter and sub-bill the tenants or upgrade the manual read meters to second-generation touch read meters at Parkwood's expense. And the city will maintain the meters and continue to bill the tenants directly. The city had already started to do this at its expense. Parkwood chose to upgrade at our expense. 10 years later, rule change. The city changed the rules again, making Parkwood responsible for maintaining and repairing the water meters at its expense. Now, after 11 years, the city wants another rule change, stating Parkwood will be billed on a master meter. Parkwood will then be responsible for billing each tenant. For the last 50 years, half a century, the city has billed Parkwood and its residents at the same rates as the rest of the city. Today, all city customers, except manufactured housing communities, have a third-generation smart meter. Why is Parkwood and its tenants being treated differently? Is this service discrimination? The city needs to honor the original agreement, provide water meters, billing, maintenance, reading, and free upgrades. After all, that's what we've been paying for.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wants to speak to this agenda item? Nobody else? Okay, back to council. All right. Do you want to weigh in on answer a few
Or
questions?
you want to
there?
get Matt to talk a little bit about the
Sure,
legal
go
differences
ahead.
in easements and permission?
Well, yeah, I think the first thing I want to point out is the ordinance, as it's prepared here tonight, changes a couple things definitionally, but the obligation for the park to maintain its private water system is already a requirement in our code, and it's been that way for a long time, decades. So that's not something that's being changed here today. That's already an obligation that they have. The statute we all keep referencing is 723.045 Florida statutes that makes it illegal for a park owner to upcharge the water that we're selling to the park by 1 cent over what we charge to the park. That's it. You can't mark up any fraction of a cent over what we bill the park owner for the water. The only thing they can charge to residents would be actual costs. So they can't even, do a percentage over for maintenance or administration. It has to be actual cost. That's the only pass-through that can happen to actual tenants is incurred costs. So no percentages, nothing like that. That's it. I mean, those are the limitations that they're going to have to follow. This obviously has a 1-year tail to it, so there's going to be plenty of time for them to prop up the necessary administration to take over what the city's been doing for the last so many years. So there should be with that time a smoother transition to give them the time to find the private individuals necessary to take that on.
When you talk about the additional other costs, you're talking about infrastructure costs.
Correct.
But
Exactly.
their infrastructure, not
Private.
That's private infrastructure. That belongs to them, not the city anyway.
Absolutely.
Not the taxpayers. That's private infrastructure.
And one last point, because there was a talk about amenities and that sort of thing. The park has already the parks this is impacting, which are just the few remaining that we're talking about. They're already being billed the difference from what's being used and what's actually being billed from the master meter. So, any kind of water use for amenities and that sort of thing, that's already being incurred, and that's being captured. That step has already been completed. The city's not out money because once the water passes through the master meter, the park is getting the differential. The park is having to pay that currently.
Anything else?
That's all.
I don't know if there were any questions that you didn't have answered that you'd like me to touch on. That basically covered it. All the other parks are already done the way we're suggesting. The ones that don't, that they are running their own systems behind it. It's only these 5 that haven't been caught up to what everybody is. So the vast majority of the mobile home parks, campgrounds, and everything in the city are already doing what this ordinance will clarify these 5 need to do.
And I know from just recollection, many years ago, this was talked about as a concern, that the city was doing something, probably with good intentions, that it really should not be doing because it's a private community and it's their infrastructure. It's not taxpayer infrastructure. Same thing with the roads. Those are their roads, their sidewalks, different things, you know.
And it's an enterprise fund, so this isn't about generating revenue to build a park or hire a police officer. It's an enterprise fund. All the money goes back into the water and sewer fund, and we have bond obligations for it's expensive to run a water and sewer system. That's why South Daytona and Ponce Inlet and these people don't have them, and we run them. So we have borrowed money to run water plants and sewer plants and put pipes in the ground. Just tonight, 1.4 million for one lift station. That infrastructure, so the ratepayer funds go back into this, only into this. All it does is support providing clean water to drink and getting rid of wastewater as it moves forward. So the subsidizing of the billing cost for these 5 parks by the rest of the users, you could have people from the other 20 parks show up and be mad. We spent 40 years paying for free billing for people. Why did we not get free billing an hour? So it's not you're just trying to be fair to everybody that's on the system, but it's not a matter of going, this isn't being done to make more money for us. It's being done to be fair and equitable to everyone. There is no public, and the public can't be on private property providing funding to support a private park interest.
Gotcha. Tracy, what do you got?
It's just, you know, we go back into history and we look at this, and it's how did we get here? You know, it's always the concerns. Every time we come up here, we got these hard decisions to make. It's stuff from 30 and 40 years ago every time we turn around. I know we got to clean it up, and it is private property, and I get that. But it's still, it's our citizens, and we're trying to figure out how to make this right, and for the city, make it right for everybody. What you just said, Wayne, was, you know, we got other parks that this doesn't exist on. You know, how did we get to those parks that process didn't exist, and we still have these left?
There is no record, there's no agreements. Somebody mentioned one that we have found 0 agreements. There's no records as to why these 5 parks aren't being handled the way everybody else is. And all new stuff, we do that. We do it with most of the commercial development, most of the city. That's how it's done. You master meter in what's behind it. If you're building a hotel, if you're building an apartment complex, same kind of thing. That's what we've been doing for decades.
Yeah.
We don't have an agreement that says why these 5 parks are treated differently.
Okay. And then we get to the legalities. You know, we've went now full circle that we weren't supposed to be on people's properties, but we were, and now we're going to back off of that and master meter it. So there's any legality issues with how that was, and now we're changing it.
Yeah, I mean, all I can tell you is, it's my advice, we stop that immediately, and this is the best way to do that. I mean, you're not going to correct what's been done, but this is the best way. It's the most fair way, by giving enough time to make this transition. We know that that's a big change, and you know, we want to be fair on how long the transition takes, but we can't be in there, and we need to end that practice.
Okay. Go ahead. I'll come back
to you.
Come back
Sean?
to me.
This is something that needs to be done to clean up the mess that was created many years ago. Not to fault to any one person or one council or management of how the city was. It's just things weren't done right. And as time goes on, you find ways to do things better. And this is going to be a better way to do business for the city in whole. I hate the fact that if this ordinance passes, then the park company, that the owner of the park, is going to have probably some expenses, because they're going to have to probably fix some pipes and probably fix some meters, and there's going to be some costs, and usually those costs are passed down to the tenant in this case. And you know, that's unfortunate, but we can't let that dictate how we're going to operate our city in a we have a responsibility to everybody in our city to operate it in a way that it's efficient. and this way is not. And to estimate what one's water bill is ridiculous. They don't do that to my house. I pay what the water is I use. It's not estimated. So we have to correct this. This ordinance corrects it. It's painful. We are giving time for the owners of these parks to get it right, and it's just something we got to clean up. It's unfortunate.
So Wayne, just a quick question. So are you saying that we have some parks that have master meters, but then they have individual meters on the property as well? Is that correct?
All the parks have master meters, even these have master meters on them, but we were reading them. The other ones that have sub meters on the property are owned and operated and billed by the actual park owner. So there are parks.
So the city's only reading the master meter?
Correct.
We're not estimating that, what we're talking about is estimating?
On the parks that are done according to the way
Oh.
the standard is. These 5, we were reading meters. We were manually read them when they were manual. Some of them got upgraded where you could drive by and read them. I don't know how many of them got upgraded to radio read where they just send in.
Mhm.
But there are more than half of the meters in these 5 parks do not read anymore. But they're not our meters, so we can't go fix them. So citywide, the 37,000 in the whole system, we have a meter failure rate below 1%, which is a really good overall. But these aren't ours, so we can't go replace them. So you tell the park, hey, these 5 houses, the meters aren't reading on them, and they'll go, we'll get on it. But while they're not, we just have to average the use. And let's say if 1,000 gallons is going through the master meter, we average whatever's there, and whatever the difference is, we charge back to the master meter at the front, and it goes back to the owner of the park to make up the difference in averaging it. So we have an obligation not to lose money because it's an enterprise. Back again, it's not money for parks or police. Because it's an enterprise. We have to bill what goes through that meter, and we are doing that. You can sense the frustration in some of the residents if they're averaging it. That they're not paying, as Councilman Gefford said, they're not paying. Some of them may not be paying exactly what they use because it's being averaged. But they're not. I don't think they're
But the
required
differential
to do
could be
sub-meters. They
being
don't
paid through the
necessarily
rent,
have to.
right? You're saying they're being billed for the differential, and that could also be put into the rent
The
then,
park
obviously.
is being charged for
Yeah,
that.
right, I got you. Okay. Yeah. It's a tough situation, but again, if we can't read the meters and we can't access the property, then that creates a business problem, so. Yeah.
Well, and I think that there's several problems. One of which is it shouldn't have been like this in the first place, but maybe the intentions were good and it was never supposed to be like that for long, and time went by, and the next thing you know, it's that concept that we hear from time to time. Well, it's always been done that way, and nobody really knows why, even though it's not the right way, it's not the legal way. The other thing is to Councilman Gefford's point, like you said, sometimes there can be infrastructure cost that gets passed on to the tenants. Well, guess what? Infrastructure costs gets passed on to taxpayers that don't live in private communities. If we got to go in and we got to replace 10,000 meters, that cost gets passed on to them too. That's not, we don't get meters for free, so those costs get passed on, and so you've got a concept here of a private community, and when you are going to live in a private community, I can't show up and use the pool. I can't show up and use the amenities, things like that. I don't live in there, and they can restrict all that, and they should do that. But the infrastructure is private as well. And what you can't have is taxpayers funding the cost of infrastructure, maintenance, repair, and oversight in a private community. You can't do that. That's just fundamentally, it's just wrong. I mean, it's just not the right way to do that. I think anybody of any sense of reason can kind of grasp that, and that's. So there's pros and cons to living in private communities. This is really about, it is time to fix something that has been getting done for a long time the wrong way. And I do think that, having a year of time for the communities, these 5 communities, to kind of make those adjustments seems pretty reasonable. So, anybody, did you have anything else you wanted to add, Wayne? Not anything else? Did you guys have anything else you wanted to add? No? Okay. All right, so clerk call the roll.
Councilman Gephardt?
Yes.
Councilman Green?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grubbs?
No.
Mayor Stiller?
Yes, 3-1. All right, moving on to agenda Item number 19, council committee reports. And that was going to be Volusia Flagler TPO for Councilman Foley, who is not here tonight, so we'll move that to the next agenda item. Anything else to come before us tonight? No? All right, with that, you guys have a good night and try to stay warm.
Yeah, you did, and I made sure.